Welcome to the Low-Carb USA podcast, where we seek to inspire you to help us build this community. I'm Doug Reynolds.
And this is Pam Devine.
Okay, so I've got Jeff Roslund and Ryan Boudreau here, and they came to me originally with the idea of being a sponsor or vendor at our events with the concept of sugar-free cocktails. And maybe we're working on trying to get those in the expo at our event. But in the process of having that conversation, Jeff kind of spoke to me about his passion about investigating and really understanding sugar and alcohol and how that affects all of us. So we decided we're going to do a podcast about that. And Jeff, yeah, let me stop chattering and you go ahead and start talking about this. Tell us about this and why you're so passionate about it.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. Well, thanks for having us, Doug. So I'm Jeff Roslund. We have my business partner, Ryan Boudreau, on here, and we're Dapper Barons. So we're the first company to create near sugar-free liqueurs as well as zero sugar, ready-to-drink cocktails. So to your point, Doug, this is something that both Ryan and I are very passionate about. So we've both been longtime keto dieters as well as interested in this space of cocktails and mixology. And after a while, when we started the keto dieting, we learned how much sugar is really in cocktails, and it's coming from that liqueur component. So a lot of the cocktails are balancing spirits plus some sort of sweetener, plus maybe some sort of citrus or other flavoring component. But the liqueurs looked at as providing that sweetness, and they are just packed with sugar. So the thought was if we could pull the sugar out of these liqueurs, kind of applying the same concepts to other low-carb substitutes when you're making low-carb desserts or low-carb baked goods. If we could apply that to the liqueurs, then you could go back to making cocktails the way they're meant to taste, the way they're meant to be constructed, but you wouldn't have all that sugar to go with it. So now it would be possible to enjoy those on a keto diet and low-carb lifestyle. So that's what kind of started all of this.
Okay, but just with regards to the alcohol itself, I mean, I know we drink the dry farm wines and stuff, which are sugar-free wines and everything, but often people say to us, well, what about the alcohol? There's still some effect on the keto metabolism or whatever with just the alcohol itself. So I don't know how much investigation you've done in that, but like with regards to just alcohol, how does that really affect us? Do you know?
Yeah. So I think that's kind of the interesting part. So, when we talk about alcohol as a category of drinks, a lot of times we're referring to everything from beer, wines, and spirits. So it kind of helps to break it down of in the spirits category, what's really in here and what are we talking about there? So if we maybe focus on that area, so spirits, if you take something like vodka, let's say, vodka, it has that alcohol component plus water. That's really what it is. And the alcohol that's in vodka is created through a distillation process. So you have sugars and starches. That's where it all starts. And you have bacteria that eat the sugar and starches. That bacteria excretes the chemical alcohol, ethanol. And then you boil that off and it hits a cold surface and you collect it as a liquid at the end. That's the distillation process. So everything that you collect, that's the ethanol that you then mix in with the water, but none of that has any sugar in it. That all the starches and sugars, that's left in the original wash or mash that was created in the process, but everything you collect is really sugar-free. So all of these products like vodka, gin, tequila, whiskey, all of that is
And
sugar-free to begin
carbohydrate-free.
with.
Yeah.
And carbohydrate, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, so that's naturally going to be sugar-free and carb-free. When you start to get into the flavored spirits, that's where brands are starting to reintroduce solids again. So you're mixing in sugars and other flavoring components, maybe from juices, things like that. So all of those components start to now change the composition. And that's where you get that liqueur category traditionally has a ton of sugar packed in there. And, to answer your question, we'll dig into how much sugar is actually in these liqueurs, but answer your question around the effect on your body. I think it all depends on what comfort level you have. Alcohol certainly is something that your body has to process, and there are calories associated with that. So your body will be taking in calories if you're having vodka, let's say. But what we recommend to people, and we see a lot of the people that are interested in our products, they're just trying to make the best decisions they can possible when it comes to enjoying cocktails and beverages. So products like ours allow people to do that with having that lowest additional sugar content possible that they're taking in.
Okay, and then calories, do you know off the top of your head, like roughly a tot of vodka or whatever, like how, I mean, I know I can go and look it up, but since
Yeah.
you're on this thing with the experts, what sort of calorie value is involved or associated with a tot, say, of alcohol like vodka?
Yeah, I think vodka, Ryan, you might know this one too, I think it's about like 65 per ounce or something, maybe
I was gonna say
95
about
for
80.
1.5
Yeah, I was gonna
or
say about
80.
80. Yeah,
Okay.
depending on it varies in there, but yeah, base spirit probably 80 to 90
Yeah,
Okay.
80 to
calories.
90, and yeah, exactly.
Because, generally for most of us, with regards to this ketogenic diet, low carb diet, we advocate not counting calories, right? You eat to satiety, and supposedly this fixed metabolism that you have through adopting this lifestyle does away with those cravings and a lot of the overeating stuff. Sometimes I still struggle with it. Like my eyes are bigger than my tummy sort of thing. It's like you're so used to eating this big plate of food. Now you're eating much more nutrient dense food. So your pile of food is much smaller. And so
Correct.
you eat
Yeah.
it. And if you don't give yourself time to feel full, you can keep eating before, and then by the time you really start feeling full, you've way overeaten.
Right.
So the long story, just basically saying that even though calories are not necessarily important in the ketogenic diet, you still have to be aware of them. We're not immune to, we can't just eat as many calories as we want to just because we're on the ketogenic diet.
Sure.
So that's why I was asking is just if people are going to start looking at, for a lot of people, they've been excluding alcohol in adopting this lifestyle. And so this kind of conversation, and when I talk about dry farm wines, is the same thing. It's like now people think, oh, maybe there's this, I might be able to reintroduce this again. And I know Eric Westman is like one of the big things, like the first thing he says is, yeah, but remember the calories. So be aware of the fact that even though there's no sugar associated with it, there are calories associated with it that you should be mindful of.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
But so you mentioned it. I don't know which one of you is most equipped to answer this, but maybe you can give people an idea. You keep talking about the sugar in some of these liqueurs and stuff. What sort of amounts are we talking about here?
Yeah.
Good job.
I have some visual aids with me actually to help talk through this here. So, we were looking this up the other day, and I went to the store. I haven't had a Hershey's candy bar in a long time, and so I got one, and in this is a regular size, full size here, 25 grams of sugar are in this. So to put that into comparison of how much sugar would be in a standard bottle of Kahlua, so a standard bottle is 750 milliliters, which would be, this is roughly this is the size of ours. It would be like a wine bottle. So Kahlua has the equivalent of 12 Hershey's candy bars in a single bottle. That's the level that we're talking about. So, you're looking at about 300 grams. And, another visual we like to use for this. So this is a smaller size bottle, but this is a 375 milliliter bottle. But if this was full of Kahlua, this is how much sugar would be in that bottle. So
Wow.
basically by volume, half the bottle is sugar. And, I don't mean to pick on Kahlua per se. Actually, the reason that we're referencing that is Kahlua does something that's even more rare. They actually do publish their nutritional info if you go on their website. And that's a whole other part of this story when it comes to alcohol products that makes this category really difficult to understand and has caused a lot of misinformation out there. And is that if you look at the vast majority of spirits products on the market, and beer and wine, they don't have nutrition labels on them. So there's no requirement for nutrition labels on alcohol products. And that's because alcohol is managed by a whole different government body. It's called the Alcohol Tax and Trade Bureau, also known as the TTB.
Mhm.
They're like the equivalent of the FDA. FDA is for food, TTB is for alcohol. And they specifically do not have any requirements around labeling. So this has caused a lot of people to, really...
Nutritional labeling.
Yeah, nutritional labeling. Yeah, they're very strict on a lot of other labeling, actually. For example, with our products, we're using sugar alcohols, which many in the keto community would know. They have carbohydrates, but they don't have what we would think of as net or effective carbohydrates. The TTB in their world does not allow us to advertise that fact of what the net carb rating is. We can't put that in our labels, can't put that in any of our marketing. But our products really are, they have zero net carbs to go along with the zero sugar aspect. So that's, it's something that has made this challenging. And I know for Ryan and I, just going back to like the early stages of our keto journey and experience, at first, like, I didn't even think that, I just kind of assumed like, well, these liquid things like Kahlua or, all these cocktails, how much sugar can they really have, and they're not candy. They don't look like candy. And the labels don't say anything about how there's any added sugar or anything. But until you really do that research and dig into it, that's when you start to find out the volumes of these are just astronomical. And, one cocktail can just throw off your whole day's sugar count.
Yeah, when you think about, and it varies, but, it can be anywhere from 10 to 18 grams of sugar per serving in if you're using a traditional liqueur like Cointreau, Kahlua, in a cocktail. And then you think of like even a margarita, right? Where you have Cointreau or triple sec in a margarita, but then a lot of times they're adding simple syrup to go with it. And then you have 2 or 3 of those, and that's just a large amount of sugar, that your body has to process with the alcohol.
It's kind of scary that you mentioned the fact that, because when you start this keto diet, I'm sure you guys went through the same things. Like you're looking at the nutrition labels on every single thing that you eat. It's like you're completely anal about it.
Absolutely.
But now you look at you're going to make something and you don't know better. You look at a bottle and it doesn't talk about all the sugar that's in the liqueur. Let's be generic about it. And that can be devastatingly misleading if people don't actually do more research to find out how much sugar is actually in this liqueur that they plan to use. They can get themselves in a lot of trouble. And keep wondering why they're not losing weight or reversing the diabetes or getting their A1C down or whatever the target is for them when they've adopted this lifestyle. And that could be a huge thing. Where I know, not with alcohol, but there were in my journey in the beginning, like Pam and I were doing, and we would keep hitting these plateaus, and we couldn't understand. In those days, the information wasn't nearly as prevalent as it is now, you know, and we couldn't work out what it was. And eventually, like watermelon as an example, for some reason, we thought watermelon had no sugar in it, based on very little. And so we thought that was like one of our treats. We used to literally buy entire watermelons and we took up the whole bottom section of our fridge. And then we would get this big sharp knife and we'd cut a slice off it each night, cut it in half, and we'd have a big half thing of watermelon. And eventually I kind of found out how much sugar is in watermelons, and I had a meltdown, and I don't think I've had a mouth of watermelon since then. But suddenly, you know, like we started responding again, and so it's not ridiculous to assume that people don't know that there's a ton of sugar in liqueurs, and they just think, hey, there's nothing on the bottle, and so let's be. And each night, all you need is one of those each night or something, and that just like screws your whole ketogenic day up completely.
Yeah, you know, just to put some more volume examples into perspective. So when Ryan was talking about that 10 to 20 gram sugar, that's typically what we see in a lot of these liqueurs. So just a standard shot glass is, if you fill it up all the way to the top, 1.5 grams, or sorry, 1.5 ounces. And that's the standard serving size that everything is kind of oriented around in the spirits industry. For any products that do have nutrition labels, you have to put them in that 1.5 fluid ounce serving size. But yeah, so, a lot of those ones, if you're already at, about 15 to 20 grams, let's say on that higher end in 1.5 fluid ounces, all it takes is about 2 ounces and you're up to having that equivalent of a whole Hershey's candy bar. And, so you could ask yourself, if I'm having this cocktail, do you realize that that's the same as eating an entire Hershey's candy bar? And I think a lot of people, would either say, well, I'll just opt for maybe having a few pieces of chocolate or something, and still have that same dessert enjoyment, or for the most part probably just don't realize this volume at all whatsoever.
So you're talking about having close to zero sugar versions of these. Some, I'm assuming, not everyone, but it's a certain different liqueurs and stuff. So which ones do you have, and how do you get to that point? I mean, does it taste the same? And how do you get to that point where you can claim that it's got zero or very little sugar in it?
Yeah. So we make basically two groups of products. One group is a set of liqueurs. The other is a set of the bottled cocktails. For the liqueurs, going back to that TTB federal body we were talking about, they actually have a very, very strict definition of every type of alcoholic beverage product. And to fit that definition, there's a few different aspects of the components, the ingredients, and the process. So to call our products liqueurs, such as the orange liqueurs, and they all have names like triple sec and curacao. To use any of that terminology, we have to follow that definition of liqueur, and part of that definition is that 2.5% by weight of our product has to be sugar. So going back to that comparison, we intended for all these to be sugar-free, but based on that strict definition, we actually do have to have a little bit of sugar. But this is what you have on the market today for many liqueurs. Ours has just this dash in here to meet that requirement. So we do have a little bit of sugar in all of our products. These liqueurs, we have 5 of them. They're all branded the same way with this 1.3 grams of sugar per serving, which is at 1.5 fluid ounces. But the rest of that sweetness is coming from sugar alcohols. So it was very important to us early on that we stick to natural sweeteners. Artificial sweeteners, I think, jury's still out. There's plenty of debate on health of those and impacts in your body. If nothing else, there's a lot of people that just don't like the taste of those.
Right.
And there's a aftertaste, a lot of different aspects of those that are just unpleasant. So we stuck to the natural sweeteners that are in that family that I think especially the keto community is very aware of. And we were also intending to advertise more of that net carb aspect of these, but again, kind of ran into some regulatory issues there. But that's where the sweetness is coming from. It's really kind of marrying some of that natural sugar sweetness plus the sugar alcohols. And then the other family of go ahead, yeah.
And that same topic though. So yeah, and the liqueurs they're designed to try and achieve that same level of sweetness as the traditional liqueurs. So you can swap them. Basically, you can use every standard recipe for a cocktail out there, and you just swap ours 1 for 1 with your traditional liqueur that you were using before, and the drink will taste, pretty much the same.
Exactly.
In some cases, better.
Right. Yeah.
So
alcohol content is the same too.
Yeah. Like you were talking about that 1.5 ounce measuring thing. I mean, is that typically kind of the amount that you would put in if you were mixing up a cocktail or something? Or would it be actually 1 ounce and not 1.5 ounces? I mean, 1 ounce and a quarter or whatever it is, 1.5 ounces.
Yeah.
Is that like, so if you were mixing up a thing, would that be typically how much you would put in because the reason I'm asking that is now to go back and say, all right, we've got that bit of sugar in the whole bottle. So how much is in a typical tot or whatever that you're going to put in and mix into a cocktail? And if you put in, so if you have 2 different ones, then there's going to be X amount from each of those. What's the number on single serving?
Yeah. So in this whole, shot glass here, 1.5 fluid ounces. So the amount of sugar there would be 1 gram. Okay. And 1 gram is about 1/4 of a teaspoon.
Right. 1 grams, that's good.
And then in terms of what you'd use in the cocktail, of course, it depends on the cocktail. Maybe you'd use less, as you said, plenty of cocktails might have just, 1/2 ounce to 1 ounce per cocktail.
But then they might have a couple of other cocktails as well that they mix together. So your total amount might be that 1.5. So you're talking about around 1 gram for that drink.
Yeah. So if you so I really like this cocktail book here. It's called The Craft of the Cocktail. It's by someone named Dale DeGroff. Has tons of just classic cocktail recipes. And what we always, so if you look at the whole, list of cocktails that are out there, there's ones that can be very sugary because they are including sugary juices like cranberry juice and orange juice and other simple syrups and stuff. But, what we always try to focus on and we market these are the ones that if you compile your ingredients properly and you're using our liqueurs as opposed to traditional liqueurs, that whole cocktail should be like 2 grams or less of sugar.
Yeah, and the other thing is you can go with very often sugar-free versions of some of those mixes, and that more and more of these products are coming out with a sugar-free version. So that not always, but often tastes pretty close to the original as well, because that's important just if you're trying to mix a cocktail or something as well, especially.
Absolutely. Actually, I was really impressed. A brand, and I can't remember now if it was Ocean Spray or Old Orchard, but some of those juice companies, there's a new version of their juices. They've had diet versions for a long time that have used artificial sweeteners and colors, and they're 0 to 5 calories or so of like cranberry juice and grape juice. But They actually have some new version now. Their branding is no sugar, and it's all sweetened with stevia. So natural sweeteners and no artificial colors either. It's vegetable juices for the colors. So, as you said, great option out there. These are expanding in terms of mixers. So now that just expands, when you're looking at the whole book, instead of ruling out all those ones, if you're really trying to keep that entire cocktail down to just 1 or 2 grams of sugar, you can do that.
Yeah. This just gives people options, and I know one of the things that often turns people off deciding to go the keto route is when they find out that, they're going to have to jettison all the alcohols, I was a big beer drinker, and then when I first started, I used to still, when not at home, but if I went out anywhere, which was quite frequently, I would have a beer, and it's like, go and look it up, it's got like 12 grams of carbs in it, right? And it was like, all right. So if I'm going with, and in those days, I mean, much lower now, but back in those days, I was trying to at least get under 50, 15 to 20 per meal. If there's 13 in that, then that sets the table for what else I can have with that meal, but I could still have a beer. I think I found when I stopped doing that I responded better. But now, and the first time I really saw it in a good way was when Gary Fettke actually introduced. We were visiting him, we went to visit him when we went to my family in Australia. And we went across to Tasmania, and he had some low carb beers. I think Australia is leading the way on low carb beers. They've got a lot of them now. And the thing is that because everybody thinks low carb, they're thinking Bud Light or whatever. They're thinking it's like lower alcohol.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's a regular beer. They've just done like they do with dry farm wines, where they ferment it to completion, and they don't stop the fermentation process with a bunch of residual sugar left behind in that whole fermentation process. And the beers are really good, and they've got like 1 gram of carbs in the whole beer.
Yeah, they're still craft beers. Yeah, they're good.
Yeah, they're good beers. And so that's giving, I wish that had been around when I first started, because I probably would have been more successful quicker, I think, if I hadn't been at least trying to hang on to a couple of those little things that I gave up. I ate a ton of chocolates and stuff like that, and I gave that all up like really easily. Eating pasta and rice and all of that, which as a runner, I used to eat tons of.
Sure.
I walked away from that like without even blinking. But here and there were little things that I hung on to for dear life, 1 beer every time I went out. But now you can have a couple of beers and have genuinely good tasting low carb beers, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So you guys are just bringing now another we're adding another feather to the quiver here, like more feather to the arrow
Exactly.
to the quiver.
I was going to say, well, I mean, we were going to go into aside from the liqueurs where you got to make your own cocktail, we've also got the ready to drink.
The mixed ones, and those are all sugar free, right? So maybe you should talk about those a bit as well.
Yeah, well, I think what you were talking about with the emergence of the beers that are more like craft low carb beers, and you have companies like Dry Farm Wines that are helping to curate all the different sugar-free wines that are out there. Our mission has been about expanding beverage options for the sugar-conscious consumer. So if you were to walk through a liquor store today, or before we started just a few years ago, every aisle of that liquor store has some sort of low carb, low sugar option, except that liqueur category. So that's what we wanted to solve for here. And Yeah, and so in addition to the liqueurs, if you're not into mixing drinks or time, interest, skill, whatever, we have these bottled cocktails now that we're really excited about, and these have actually been our best selling ones because it's so easy to just you open the bottle and you have something that's ready to drink. So this is a zero
And
sugar.
those are zero because now you're not calling it a liqueur.
Exactly.
So you don't have that prerequisite anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, we probably should have thought of that first, even before the liqueurs. But yeah, it was a little way to kind of work around that. And but yeah, because again, that's we want the liqueurs. We wish we could just have the zero sugar too. But this is an easy way. We're able to still deliver again on the quality, the taste, the strength of a standard craft cocktail, but without all that sugar. And it's something we've seen both consumers enjoy that are purchasing these from stores, but there's even some bars around here locally that have loved the quality so much.
Starting to serve it. Well, that's cool.
Yeah, that they're serving that,
Yeah.
and it's kind of from the angle that they might not have staff that's talented enough to make cocktails on the spot, or they don't have the time to want to do that if they have to have something quickly.
Yeah. And they don't have to store the sugar-free versions of everything in their bar as well as the regular ones.
Right.
It's
just all
a couple of bottles of pre-mixed stuff and it's good to go.
Yeah.
No, that's really cool. We are talking about trying to get you to our event in San Diego, and
Yeah.
even to the one-day one we're starting to plan in Minneapolis as well in September. So if people come there and we manage to get you there, which this is negotiations with the hotel and everything, but I'm pretty confident we can make it happen. But for those people who are not going to be there, like if they wanted, do you have how do you have that? Do you have a way people can sample the stuff, or do you have like a, I don't know what they call them, like a trial package or something where people can try a whole bunch of different ones? Do you have anything like that available?
So right now we don't have any like trial packages or sample packages, but we are able to ship our products to about 47 or 48 different states.
Okay, so people can
so
start one bottle at a time and just work their way through the different ones. Yeah, no, so maybe
Exactly,
that's
yeah.
a thought, like, and I know I'm working with a macadamia nut company at the moment as well to kind of get an agreement with them to sell to our community, and they've come up with this starter package or something that gives people like a basket, smaller amounts, but all the different flavors. They have a ton of different flavors of nuts and the macadamia nut bars that they make and everything, and you can get to try the whole lot. So maybe that's something you guys can introduce down the road and see. And the other thing is maybe we can come up with another definition that you don't, but that somehow we get people to know about, but that it's not, you're not calling it a liqueur, you're calling it something else. You can come up with a good name.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to put even any sugar in it,
Yeah.
added sugar into it. So I'm happy to work with you on that as well. We can come up with some good names.
There you go. I love it. Yeah. And if anyone's interested in learning more or trying some of our products, we'll do the best we can. There's some complicated laws around mailing alcohol and stuff too, but I'd encourage anyone, go on our website.
Okay, so let's go back then. Then if they do, I'll put it in the show notes and stuff as well. But just to, like, what is your website? How do they get to it? How do they go and check this stuff out?
Yeah. Easiest thing to do would be to go to our website, dapperbarons.com, and then go to the page that says where to buy. And we have a few different shipping options there. So we actually don't ship anything directly. It comes from different liquor stores. Liquor stores are the ones that ship it. So different liquor stores in different states can ship to different states. So it's a little bit complex, but we try to outline that for everyone. And there's a marketplace on there called Reserve Bar that facilitate some of that shipping as well. So that's the best to do. And then in our home state of Minnesota, we're in about 50 to 60 places, and we're actually in some Total Wines in California and Florida as well. So starting to grow, continuing that, and we're excited about getting into some more states soon, and more stores. But for now, that's the best thing. And anyone can email us anytime, and if there's questions, we have our email address on the website. You can just email info@dapperbarons.com, and we'll do the best we can to help everyone out with making the decisions that are best for them.
Making a decision and trying. Yeah, and I encourage people, try this stuff out. Get your Keto Mojo or your CGM out, and make sure that it's that it's good for your blood sugars. Don't jump in that every now and you never know when one person is going to have some kind of anomaly. But go and try it and convince yourself that it's not spiking your blood sugar and that you're able to do this. Take the calories into account, and maybe this can help change your life a bit. I think it's very cool.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we hope that everyone does that, and appreciate the time, Doug. And we're hoping to be there at your event in August, as you mentioned, as well as the Minnesota event in September. So.
All right. Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot, Doug.
Thank you.
You've been listening to an episode of the Low Carb USA podcast. You can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/lowcarbusa.